Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce.
The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Holiday Inn Falmouth opened year-round for your business and travel needs. We provide a full restaurant and accommodations for banquets, holiday parties, weddings, corporate events, seminars, and more. Featuring KC Bar and Grill, where guests or Falmouth residents can enjoy our selection of local craft beers, cocktails, and a variety of pub food from our menu. Holiday Inn Falmouth, your home away from home.
I'm going to call the open meeting of Monday, August 28th to order. We're going to go into executive session under General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, discuss resolution of all wind turbine litigation, and General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to discuss negotiation for land purchase, 350 Old Barnstable Road, Unit 2A. And as chair, I declare that to not go into executive session would hurt our bargaining position on both issues, and that we will return to open session after the executive session. By roll call.
Second.
Can I have a second first? Thanks, Sam.
Second.
And by roll call?
Brown, aye. Patterson, aye.
English Braga, aye.
Moran, aye.
Jones, aye.
Thank you. the meeting to order for Monday, August 28th. We have come back from executive session. We're now starting the open session, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have a proclamation today. Mr. Patterson?
Oh, it'd be a pleasure. Whereas Brendan M. Lyon of Boy Scout Troop 40 has successfully completed the qualifications for the rank of Eagle Scout, a rigorous and demanding process that teaches patience, perseverance, and teamwork, and requires strong goal setting. And Brendan M. Lyon met these challenges with aplomb and shall be recognized as an outstanding representative of his family, his troop, and Falmouth. And the Boy Scouts of America, long acknowledged for building fine citizens, calls for a special court of honor to award its highest symbol of achievement to those who complete this rank. And whereas Brendan M. Lyon is now an Eagle Scout with all its rank and privilege, now therefore, we, Susan Moran, Megan English Braga, Douglas Jones, Samuel H. Patterson, and Douglas C. Brown, as Selectmen of the Town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim Saturday, September the 2nd, 2017, as Brendan M. Lyon Day. Congratulations. May I say that Brendan was one of my scouts. We've done a lot of hiking and camping together. I've done at least 1 or 2 merit badges with him, so it's really a pleasure for me to see Brendan having reached this level.
Can you tell us a bit about, your project?
Should we vote first?
Yes. Second, and then,
We can vote first.
Just don't want to forget it.
Sure.
A second.
Yep, there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And now, about the project.
So basically my project was at Quishnik River. There was a little bridge around there, and the problem that was going on was that there were a few bikers that were driving over there through the bridge without like being allowed to. It wasn't illegal, but like people didn't want them to do it because it was causing erosion, and in doing so that was harming trout eggs, which there aren't a lot around anymore, so they had to do something about it. So they assigned me to construct something to keep them out, so I decided to make a tiny wall. Basically I just dug a little ditch and took some boulders, I put them in and poured cement all over it, and hopefully they haven't taken it down as of now.
Great idea.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I understand that one of the quotes you had is, being an Eagle Scout has taught me to be a man and lead well. And that's terrific. Congratulations.
If I may, I want to give credit to Brendan's mother, who is a single mom and has kind of stood by her son and made sure that he stayed involved in scouting, and it's been fascinating. That's one of the pleasures of being a scout leader, is to watch young men grow from 10 or 11 years old up to 18 and mature in the process. And I've had the pleasure of watching Brendan go through that teenage period, if you will, and turn into the more confident young man that he is today. And I just want to reach out and commend Maria for standing by her son and making sure he got to scout meetings and stayed connected. And I know he participated in the music program at the high school for a period of time, and that's another group of people that tries to make sure that people don't just get lost in the shuffle. So, Maria, congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
See you on Saturday.
are you going to attend? Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have recognition. Ms. Braga?
So just as we're nearing the end of our summer season, just wanted to take a moment to recognize the staff at our beaches, in particular our lifeguard staff this year. There were 58 lifeguards at all of the public beaches, and really we'd be here for a long time if I read all of the accolades that came into the town. People who went out of their way to write, to commend and thank the lifeguards for so many different responses to true emergencies, as well as just a level of professionalism and attention to detail that struck people enough to make them send an email of thanks. And we certainly hear a lot from folks when they're dissatisfied or are questioning the way things that are done. And it's wonderful to note that this is a particular area in our town where we had a lot of real appreciation. And these are, for the most part, very young men and young women who are working in a high-intensity setting. They're really managing and have a lot of balls in the air when they're on those beaches, particularly on the weekends and those holidays when we have thousands of people enjoying our beautiful coastline. So just a big thank you and a recognition to the level of professionalism, and we just hope that many of those individuals will come back again. They're certainly welcome, and then for anyone else, it's a lovely and really exciting experience to do that as a job. So a big thanks to Bruce Magardo and to all of the lifeguards and to all of the individuals in that the beach committee and beach department. So.
Great recognition.
And if I could just say,
Sure,
I
Jeff.
attended the beach committee meeting last week, and Mr. Magardo was very proud of one of his lifeguards who made a life-saving decision, not on the beach, but in the parking lot. Happened to see someone unconscious in the vehicle and inquired with the driver, who said, "Oh, don't worry, they're just sleeping." But it didn't look right, and the lifeguard took the initiative to call 911. Turns out the person had to be resuscitated with Narcan, may not have survived. So talk about using your discretion and being really on the ball.
And there were a number of those types of events that, folks being dizzy, folks falling down, just all the things that can happen to individuals. And really, again, just time and time again, that proactive response by individuals who, saw something that didn't seem quite right and made a call. So just great work by all on the staff.
And they're so well run. These employees come back 10, 12 years sometimes, and that's a long stretch for people working the beaches.
Speaks to the camaraderie and also the great training.
They're doing great.
Thank you. Next announcement. I know Sammy had a couple.
Yeah, I have two. First of all, this Saturday and Sunday is the Rotary Craft Fair. It's at the band shell located on Scranton Avenue. There are going to be more than 50 vendors displaying their products. All the proceeds will be used for Falmouth student scholarships. The Rotary Club does not have any paid staff, so all the proceeds go strictly into the scholarships themselves. That's the first announcement. So that's this Saturday and Sunday, and it starts, I think, at 9 o'clock on both days. The second one is to mention that the Friends of Nobska Light, who are responsible for renovating the lighthouse and the tower, and the Keeper's House, have actually had a project going on, and some of you may have noticed this. There are lighthouse silhouettes, and they've invited artists throughout the community to basically decorate those lighthouses. And they've been displayed at Martha's Vineyard Savings and some of the other banks in town, the Artist Guild. Those lighthouses are being sold on an online auction that you can go on and see them and bid on them. And this is a fundraiser to help support the renovation of the Keeper's House and the creation of a maritime museum in that Keeper's House. I'll mention progress on other things on the site in my Selectmen's report later. Excuse me for getting tongue-tied there. So I would like to invite people, if you want to support this house, the renovation of the lighthouse and the Keeper's House, please go online. You can go on friendsofnobska.org, and there's a selection there for the auction. The auction ends September 6th, which is next week. So go on, take a look. If you see something that's attractive, put in a bid, and all the proceeds go for renovating the Nobska Light and Keeper's House.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a reminder, 2 weeks from today, of course, is the anniversary of the September 11th tragedy. And just wanted to remind everyone that once again, in conjunction with our colleagues in the fire department, we'll have a solemn observance for September 11th. And that'll begin at about 8:45 a.m. At the monument at the fire station. And we welcome any and all persons to join us for that solemn ceremony.
Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on. Does anyone have public comment? Mr. Finneran, public comment will be limited to 2 minutes and without reference to specific individuals in any kind of derogatory way, the typical rules. Go for it.
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. I'd just like to comment again on our new water filtration plant. I mean, there were 2 articles in the Enterprise, both of them stating that we're waiting for the authorization from the DEP in order to run the plant. And it's as I stated before, we don't have anyone qualified to run the plant. And why we aren't just given the simple truth of the matter, it puzzles me, because that is the simple truth of the matter. We don't have anyone to run it, and they're difficult to come by. It's just the way it is. I mean, this dance that we keep getting is kind of useless. Thank you.
Anyone else? Next on the agenda, we have summary of actions. The first is approve application for change of officers, 99 Restaurant of Boston, LLC at 30 Davis Straits, Falmouth. Is there anyone here for 99 Restaurants? Okay.
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have approve an application for automatic amusement devices, NDC Parks and Resorts at Falmouth, doing business as Seacrest Beach Hotel, 350 Quaker Road, North Falmouth.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next, we have approve application for one-day wine and malt liquor license for On the Water LLC Striper Fest. That's at Marina Park on Scranton Ave, September 23rd, 2017.
Move approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have approve an application for a special one-day wine and malt liquor license for the Samaritans on Cape Cod and the Islands Upper Cape Bocce Festival, Falmouth Academy, at 7 Highfield Drive on Saturday, September 16, 2017.
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have approved application for 2 special one-day all-alcohol liquor licenses, Falmouth Theater Guild at Highfield Theater on Friday and Saturday, September 15 and 16.
Move approval? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have administrative orders to approve the purchase of 350 Old Barnstable Road. Mr. Suso?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the board will recall, you had voted recently that the town pursue the acquisition of that affordable housing unit, which had become available. And with the able assistance of Assistant Town Manager Peter Johnson Staub, we have been exploring that, working also with Associate Town Council Pat Harris, and I'll defer to Peter for his comments at this point. Peter?
Thank you. So I think the authorization that the board voted in executive session needs to be reiterated in open session, and in summary, that authorization was to you know what, I'm stopping myself because we're still in the negotiation with the owner, so I'm not going to give the specific authorization. So I think at this point it's safe to report that that negotiation is ongoing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Next, we have to approve an application for 2017 Emergency Management Planning Grant. Mr. Suso, do you want to tee this up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board may recall that every year the town is eligible, because of our emergency operations activities, to acquire a relatively modest, really a formula amount each year in support of supplies and materials for our emergency operations center. And this would, this authorization would allow us to apply for that. It's a matter of $3,000 to $5,000 normally annually, and utilized for that same purpose.
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's great.
Thank you.
Next, we have a vote to accept a donation from New England Endurance Events, Falmouth Sprint Triathlon, in the amount of $1,400 to the Beach Department donation account.
Move approval with gratitude.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have a vote to authorize an expenditure from the library donation account for the installation of a flat-screen television in the lobby of the Falmouth Public Library. Did you want to give us a little synopsis? Welcome.
Yes.
Linda Collins, Director of the Falmouth Public Library. We were interested in having a flat-screen TV in the lobby of the library to show important news events and also to feature our library digital collections. The McNulty family paid to restore an original map case to have, original to the 1901 building, to have in that corner. The Friends of the Library purchased a flat-screen TV in the appropriate size. We ran a little short with the funds to have the cabling for the news, and so we want to pay for that with the donation account because we feel this is something that benefits all the users of the patrons of the library. So we're asking to use the donation fund.
I think it's great. I think it'll be a wonderful addition to what is already such a fabulous public resource.
Thank you.
Second.
I'd move approval.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank
Terrific.
you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a vote to authorize the Falmouth Police Department application for fiscal year 2017 Edward Byrne Grant, Department of Justice, in the amount of $10,757. Mr. Suso?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is another essentially a formula grant, in this case to the Falmouth Police Department. It's something that we consider annually. While it is not guaranteed, we hope to compete successfully for it. And in this case, it would fund the purchase of replacement tactical vests for the police department. Very important to keep those current and up to date for public safety purposes. We would request the board's authorization to do so.
And I think there's some other information with respect to that.
Oh, I'm
grant
sorry.
request.
Yeah, I misspoke in part. It also would fund the acquisition of 9 tasers. So I'm getting ahead of myself on tactical vests.
And is that something we already have in the department?
It is. So this would fund replacement and upgrade of tasers and also outfitting additional officers with that equipment.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're going to move ahead to terrific. Welcome, gentlemen. We're going to move right now to the Veterans Council Committee report. Perfect timing. And great tie.
That's why you're always early.
And by the way, what I'd like to do, Madam Chairman,
Mr. Mustafa.
this is for the official record,
Thank you.
and I have a copy for everyone else.
Terrific. Mr. Suso, I'll let you
Thank
keep
you,
the
Linda.
original. Thank you very much. Welcome, Mr. Dufresne, as well.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for inviting us here tonight. And what I'd like to do is just go over some of the things that we've done. Now, with me, Andy Dufresne, who's been a longtime member of the council. However, Andy, in past years, has relinquished his seat to me, representing the VFW. So thank you, Andy, for that. The thing that I'd like to talk about is a lot of things that people don't realize what goes on with the Veterans Council. First of all, we have food cards down there that we give out to needy veterans, and we have some needy veterans in town. The VFW has given out $3,840 in food cards to the Department of Veterans Affairs. The DAV has given out $700 in food cards and $150 for Flag Duty Day costs. The Elks has contributed $300 in relative to food cards. Falmouth Military Support Group covering the cost of Memorial Day and Veterans Day luncheons, which is held at the Elks. Donations, first of all, Falmouth Classic Car Club has given $500. The Rod and Gun Club gave us $500. T-Ticket Civic Association has donated $500. Local citizens have given anywhere from $400 to $500. My next-door neighbor of 55 years, Bob Texera, worked out a deal with the Chappaquiddick Grill, and he picks up the cans and bottles up there. And he is ready to bring in a check for us for $700. Also, I was notified by the owner of Eat Your Heart Out, which is a local catering service, and he, this past last week, I think it was Friday or so, they had an affair down in Falmouth Heights in the ballpark. And he collected some donations. And what he did is he collected $200 in donations from the people there, and he's going to match that. So we'll get a check from him for $400. So that helps out quite a bit. The Department of Veteran Affairs basically runs on Chapter 115 of Massachusetts General Laws. It's a program which is a needs-based program for low-income veterans, their families, widows, and widowers. Approximately $475,000 in financial assistance was allocated. The town is reimbursed 75% of that money. As a program for Falmouth veterans only, those monies are circulated back into Falmouth's economy. Service-connected benefits. This is something that I think Joe Quintiliani and Ron Dyer came up with. They figured this out. Service-connected benefits are for local veterans who have service-related illnesses and/or injuries, and approximately $7.9 million was allocated to our local veterans. Again, those monies circulate back into Falmouth's economy. The office continues to assist veterans in applying for enrollment in the VA healthcare system, as well as for aid and attendance programs. As a matter of fact, this morning, a gentleman came in who had a problem, and he's scheduled to meet again with Don because they're going to go over his paperwork and make sure it's correct this time and get it in there. The cost associated with nursing care is also something that comes into play. We also assist in applying for headstones or foot markers for veterans who have passed away and are buried in Falmouth cemeteries. The DAV, Disabled American Veterans, continues their Veterans Coffee Break twice monthly and provides information and presentations relevant to veterans' issues. What they do is, at the Atria, we have a coffee break the first Wednesday of the month, and then the second Saturday of the month at the Elks, they have another coffee break, and the veterans come there, and we have people come in and talk to them about benefits that they might have not thought about and so on. As a matter of fact, at one of those, it was when Ron Texera, who never got his Silver Star, came in, and what I did is I ran that paperwork to Hyannis, and lo and behold, Congressman Keating got the Silver Star for Ron, which was kind of sad in a way because he passed on not too long after that. The VFW, the DAV, and the Elks each donated $300 to help start up a program run by Fellowship Health Resources that provides transportation for veterans to Providence and New Bedford, VA. That's something that we've worked out with the group over here on Catherine Lee Bates Road, and so far it's working out great. A lot of people, you know, they don't have anybody, so they need to go down and get their eyes examined. They can't drive back because they dilate your pupils. So at least this way here, they can go down and get back again safely. Coonamessett continues to host the free Veterans Day breakfast for Falmouth veterans and one guest. I don't know how it's going to turn out this year because new owners of the inn. The DAV, the VFW, and the Elks split the cost for Christmas gift bags for veterans in our local nursing homes. What we've been doing is getting gift bags put together and then bringing it to the veterans up there. And we have to figure out how many women we have because we don't want to give them razors and shaving utensils. So we come up with little purses or hats or something that, you know, can keep them warm. Or even like my wife had knitted some shoulder things for them to keep their shoulders warm. The DAV and ELKS members have established a relationship with Job Lot, who gives discounts and does not charge sales tax for the gift bag items. Veterans Council members shop for the items, assemble the gift bags, and deliver them to the veterans. 160 gift bags at a cost of approximately $1,900 was given out last year, and we'll be doing it again this year. Falmouth Military Support Group donates gingerbread houses to the local nursing homes. Cape Cod Military and Family Collaborative is now being run by the Cape and Islands Outreach Center in Hyannis. We work closely with them and refer local veterans to them for various services they provide. The Veterans Council welcomes 2 new council members, Kevin Casey and Jim Sawyer. And we also had a meeting from Kill 22, an organization that raises awareness and funding for veterans who are dealing with suicide issues. That's become quite prominent, no one can figure out what is going on, but they're committing suicide 22 a day. That's where the Kill 22 comes in. It costs $15,000 to put a veteran through a program which includes housing, food, and counseling, etc. On average, 22 veterans per day in the United States take their own lives. Alan Driscoll, Medals for Canines. Alan is one of our locals here in town, and it's an organization that recognizes the work that military service dogs have contributed to the war on terror. The government passed a bill that military service dogs cannot be euthanized and have set up an adoption program for retired military service dogs. The DAV and the ELKS provide an annual outing for residents of the VA facilities. What they do is, in the past, we've had 2, sometimes 3 busloads of veterans from the Brockton VA. They come down here, we serve them a nice hot meal at the ELKS, and then they'll take them around to out at Otis or something, and they can look around at the new things that they have there. Or a couple times we went with them, and this was a long time ago, before 9/11, because you can't do it anymore. We were able to go with the Coast Guard and went out on a buoy tender, picking up buoys, and it helps them kind of get into the use of being with the public again. So those are the things that we've been doing. If there's anything that you'd like to ask me, I'm here.
I'm amazed, part of your report really highlights the coordination and the partnerships that you do with various veterans organizations, because a lot of people ask, who serves what population. It really, between Mr. Dufresne and you and your council, you really seem to have all the bases covered. I also want to, it's kind of nice, both of you former selectmen, it's great that you continue for service for the town, notwithstanding your own service to the community otherwise, and your military service. And also, just want to thank you for coming to present. And this is, part of the selectmen's strategic planning this year was to really, reinvigorate its effort to have a committee report at every single selectmen's meeting. And, it's just, board members, Diane Davidson is doing a great job coordinating that, but we do have a lot of open spots as well. So if you can kind of ask your committees to book a time with Diane, that would be help in, just to have really a closer working relationship. Although, the great job you guys do with, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, I mean, it's such a huge thing in town. I mean, you're kind of at the top of your game. So, but if you can think of anything that you might need, we appreciate that. Ms. Braga?
Yeah, and just to that end, just 3 quick points. First, I don't know if Kill 22 or any other organization is, and I assume they are. I'm just ignorant of which organization is doing it. But I know for there have been other kind of sponsor programs where if you're looking at a $15,000 number for providing services to a veteran who's in need, that's something that a community can try and take on to sponsor that individual. So I don't know if if down the road that's something, because I think you're putting your finger on the fact that we are losing 22 on average veterans a day. This is really something I think that the public has become more aware of, and it's significant, and it hasn't, even with the awareness, it hasn't really diminished. So maybe there's some way to collaborate and to add, not that you need anything more on your plate, but some other folks that can help with that, because I think there's been a lot of, I know on the internet, on Facebook, there's been a lot of recognition and awareness about about that issue. And then just the other piece is any way that you think we can assist in, number one, making sure people know that you're a resource for helping them to receive the benefits that they deserve. I mean, you know, I've seen what that paperwork is like. It's really daunting, and if you don't do it right the first time and it's rejected, you know, nobody wants to re-engage in that process, and it can be the littlest thing that they reject it for.
That's true.
So any way that you can think of that we can help to make sure that veterans know to come to you. And then the last part is just, this is actually, and I'm embarrassed, it's the first time I'm hearing about the fact that you do the gift bags around Christmas, so I'm hoping that we can come back and just publicize that when Christmas, you know, when the holidays start to roll around again, because there are lots of people, if they hear about it, will definitely, I think, contribute, you know, in some way. I didn't realize that was something that you did, and
And
160 bags, that's a lot.
Knitting,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a terrific contribution as well, and I'm sure, you know, your families jump right in there.
Well, she likes it because she sits there and watches TV and she's knitting things away, and so it worked out pretty good.
That's terrific. Really, last comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for coming and making everyone aware of what you guys are doing. And thanks for reminding me about Ronnie Texera getting that Silver Star. That was a beautiful moment at the high school when he got us all to sing God Bless America. That was great.
That was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
And,
Dufresne.
you know,
Anything you wanted to add?
The thing is, on the situation, we're supposed to be here, basically, I believe, according to rules and regulations, once a year. Thank you for inviting us, and that's probably why you've never seen us before.
And this is part of why, I mean, I knew you existed, but not, there's such a
Right.
breadth of what you do, and I think it's not just for the board to know about it, but this is a place for the public to hear about those things, and that's really necessary. It's part of why we're asking all the committees to come and talk about what they do, so
And
that,
that's why I made a point of pointing out where the coffee clutches are held, so that if any veterans out there want to come, every veteran is welcome, and no problem at all. We sit there and just talk about different things. Somebody has a problem, and we try the best we can to get them taken care of.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick note.
Yep.
Again, I'm going to thank you. I think and Andy Dufresne. Ahmed has covered it pretty good. I'm always here in total support for Ahmed, Don, and Julie down below. I come by several days a week to pep them up, so to speak. My detail over the last few years has been flag disposal, which a lot of people don't realize. They bring the flags here to Town Hall, and I've taken my truck and truckloads of American flags to CMAS for disposal. And ironically, I was told that they do not burn them with the garbage, that they put them in a separate furnace for burning. I also want to thank the Department of Public Works for their efforts when we put the flags up on Main Street. That's another one of my details that, believe it or not, we start at 5:30 in the morning, so that we don't get in anybody else's way and that we have this accomplished. Right now, we need some repairs, and with the next holiday coming up, I believe November, we need more brackets. So with the support of the Department of Public Works, we'd like to have all of those brackets changed, because one thing I don't like to do is go down and see that we can't put a flag up where it's supposed to be put up. We've had people donate the flag holders, and from my perspective, these are all the things that we accomplish as the Veterans Council to make you people proud of the effort of Chapter 151, which was adopted by the town of Falmouth. So my involvement goes back some 35 or 40 years, I'm not sure, but Ahmed has pretty well covered everything, and I turned over the VFW detail to him because I don't like to go out at night, but anyway.
Thank you very much. I saw Mr.
Incidentally, I'm
McConaty.
glad you did it at 7:30, not 8 o'clock.
I saw
Only
Mr.
for you.
McConaty taking notes, so we'll get ahead of that, I'm sure. I see him right
Yeah.
there taking notes on what you suggested.
Anyway, thank you for showing your support for the Veterans Council, and I'll stay with it as long as I can, as long as Howard keeps pushing me.
Thank you both for your
Thank
continued
you.
service.
Thank you.
Great. Next on the agenda, we have a wetlands hearing regarding reconstruction of a seasonal dock. Mark Romaine, 45 Toby Lane, East Falmouth, Eel Pond, and I'll read the public hearing notice.
Just one thing to be careful about
Yep.
is our agenda has them listed differently than the public hearing notice.
Oh, didn't catch that. Hold on here. See which one is correct.
So the public hearing notice says that the first one is the McDivitt one, while our agenda says it's the other order. I'm not sure which
Are
one.
both parties here? You're doing both? Okay, so that's something to be careful of, but there's no foul in this place. Do you have a preference? I don't. Okay, then we'll go ahead with, let's see.
I would go probably with the public hearing is probably, I'm not sure, is that more official than our agenda?
I would say so, yes. I would go with the McDivitt first.
Alrighty, that's what we'll do. And I want to be sure this is the right. Mark Romaine, of course, I was given it the opposite, so hold on. That was easy.
Threw me off my game. I was ready for the other one.
Mark Romaine, Mark. So start with
So starting with this one.
5 North Shore. Okay, we're good now. All right, so we'll start with Beach Nourishment, Phyllis and Patrick McDivitt, 5 North Sharp Lane, East Falmouth, Vineyard Sound. Public hearing notice. Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under Section 240-77 Wetland Regulations of the zoning bylaws of the town of Falmouth on Monday, August 28 at 7:30 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on the application of Phyllis and Patrick McDivitt for permission to perform beach nourishment to an existing beach on the property located at 5 North Shop Lane in East Falmouth. The area affected is Vineyard Sound. Interested parties may review the file in this hearing at the Selectmen's office per order of the Board of Selectmen, which was published in the Falmouth Enterprise on Friday, August 18, and Friday, August 25th, with copy to abutters.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members of the board, my name is Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant. The applicant owns the property at 5 North Chop Lane, which is on the waters of Vineyard Sound at the very end of a road known as Davis Neck Road. And the McDivitts have a single-family dwelling and typical landscaping and appurtenances, and their frontage on Vineyard Sound includes a beach. There is an existing licensed seawall, and there's an existing stone groin, one of several along the south-facing shore on Vineyard Sound. And through the years, the McDivitts have observed the beach in front of their house going away. There's erosion to the point that the bottom stones on the revetment, the toe stones, are at risk of being undermined, which could compromise that seawall. So they've also lost some recreational use of the beach that they've enjoyed through the years with their extended family. So they're applied through our office to the Conservation Commission initially for permission to install 940 cubic yards of beach-compatible sand on the beach. This was at the recommendation of the Woods Hole Group, who worked with us and consulted with the McDivitts and made recommendations. The beach sand would be from the base of the stone riprap in the intertidal zone between these two stone groins, and would be subject to the tidal action and would end up moving and shifting and changing the beach profile to a flatter beach profile, which is what you like to do to prevent scour. It's a maintenance thing it's an expensive maintenance thing that has to be done more often than just a one-time thing, depending on storm events, and it would require re-permitting over the years as it's monitored. So the initial request to the Conservation Commission was 940 cubic yards. The the commission did approve the project, but with a significant reduction in the volume that they're allowed. They only approved the project for 100 cubic yards, so significant reduction in the volume. And I think their thought process was they didn't want to introduce too much sand in the intertidal zone until it was first sort of tested with a smaller amount that was more nearby and adjacent to the riprap. The condition, in addition to limiting it to 100 cubic yards, said it couldn't be installed seaward of mean low water. Initially, it was proposed to be installed seaward of mean low water in the intertidal zone. So the McDevitt's were somewhat disappointed, but grateful that they could at least put some beach nourishment on their beach. And since it's in the intertidal zone between the riprap and mean low water, it's subject to your jurisdiction, and that's why we're here. The sand will be delivered from the upland and placed by a small bobcat-type machine on the beach. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Could you describe the plantings that are also going to be part of this project?
In this corner, there's a proposal to install some bayberry native plant material, because when this house was originally reconstructed in the mid-2000s, on or about in the year 2006, I believe, or 2005, it came with a condition that there'd be some mitigation planting between the seawall and the house in the corners. And when the Conservation Commission reviewed the project, they noticed that some of these had died back, and they asked that they be replanted.
And they're aware the condition requires that if they do any pruning of those, that needs to get permission from the Conservation Commission?
Yes.
Of plantings both on the east and the west?
Yes.
Any other questions from the board? Doug?
I'm just curious about the significant reduction. It seems like we would want to somehow encourage people to want to spend their own funds to nourish the beach rather than discourage it. And if there's a way that we can accommodate that, I know we have to be conscious of the environment and careful with what we do, but it's such a drastic reduction, very concerning.
Curious to know what the rationale was for that reduction.
I'm curious too. I didn't get a really good explanation. I think there was some skepticism on the part of the commission as to the reporting and the analysis that we performed, the Woods Hole Group and us, as to what the expectation of where the sand would migrate to. There was reporting that it would migrate in this area. There was some concern that it might migrate further east. Southwest wind could bring it further east towards other places that it could cause problems that were not considered. So we really don't know. It wasn't specific.
Did abutters speak?
No abutters spoke. There was no opposition. No one in favor, no one in opposition.
I have another question. Given that the owners have probably spent quite a lot of money to get to this point, is this a project that you could revisit to increase, bring back some more of that proposed sand without huge expense to the owners, or will they have to go through the whole process again?
Actually, it's something we've considered. The order of conditions is valid for 3 years. They intend to do their initial 100 cubic yard nourishment this spring, coming spring. And there's monitoring that goes with that. We're going to do some monitoring of it and report back to the Conservation Commission. And while that 3-year window is still open, we have the option to request an amendment if we can demonstrate that the sand hasn't had an issue, that we are considering requesting an amendment to increase the volume. If they don't grant that, there's another, once the 3-year term expired or an extension of it, we could reapply for more. And and see if we can convince the Conservation Commission. There's also the option of appealing the decision of the Conservation Commission, but the applicant chose not to because they wanted some sand instead of being delayed and not have any sand. But they're going to revisit that, I think, as time goes on.
Sam?
Yes, Michael, is there an inlet east or west of here that they might be concerned about filling in with too much sand?
The closest inlet east is Bourne's Pond, and it's some distance away.
Okay, thanks.
And I think, I'm just gonna, I'm just noting that the concern that they noted was that it would impact resource areas in Vineyard Sound, land under ocean. So it's not really clear exactly what their specific concern was, so I think that's all that we have to go with.
Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak against this application?
Can I ask just a perhaps stupid question for my own edification?
Come to the podium.
I don't think you can ask a stupid question.
I know little or nothing about this.
For the record, could you state your name?
Mark Finneran,
Thank you.
Precinct 6. But is it possible that you could use a sand that's slightly different than everything that's there? So you could readily determine if it was migrating and causing the problems that they consider possible? Just curious myself.
Well, typically, the recommendation is to use compatible beach sand, meaning compatible, meaning same grain size and typical size of what's in the area. So the way that you track or monitor if it's having an impact is to try to understand after you place it where it goes. And you do that through beach profiles. You see if it's starting to migrate further out into the sound. We tried to convince the commission that there weren't any known nearby eel grass beds in the land under the ocean. But really all you can do is report back on your analysis of where the sediment is transferring to, and then go back and hopefully convince them that additional sand is, warranted.
900 yards is a lot of sand, though.
100 yards, yeah, to try to
No,
put
900.
it, it's like 5 or 6 dump truck loads, I guess is a good way to.
900?
900 is or 100 is?
100.
Right, 900 yards.
I'm sorry.
That's a lot of sand.
It is a lot of sand, yes. The reason that it was proposed was because the concept is you load it up, if you will, with a significant amount, and then the natural processes of the waves will flatten the beach profile so that the waves begin to break further offshore and they don't scour right up in the near shore and drag the sand out. So it's a maintenance process. It's an expensive maintenance process. And the McDevitt's would probably, if they got the 900, I think they'll certainly do it with the 100. If they got the 900, they might be faced with, if they value the beach enough and the integrity of that riprap wall, be back again. They went into this knowing that and understanding it, and they were willing to do it. But conservation.
They'd also be adding to a lot of the public beach, because a lot of what they're talking about will be actually public accessible property, because it'll be below the mean tide mark.
And there's actually a public beach just west, although the prevailing wind's southwest, but the Davis Neck Road is a public road to the water.
Right.
And right now, it's really not a beach, it's underwater. There used to be a beach a lot, there used to be much more beach here.
I would move to close the hearing.
Second?
Roll call? Forget if we do
No.
the hearings. No roll call. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. Discussion?
Just so I can be clear, so all we can really do is vote this up or down. We
Right.
can't make any other recommendations. So that's just, it's just to let us know because we have authority over that
I think we can
We
make
can
our
add-
own conditions.
We can add more conditions.
Right.
But I
We
don't
can't
think
alter their-
we can't change the concourse
Correct.
conditions of 100 yards to
Right.
500 yards.
Right, okay.
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Conveniently, right here for the next one. Now have the wetlands hearing to reconstruct a seasonal dock, Mark Romaine, 75 Toby Lane, East Falmouth, Eel Pond. And the public hearing notice is as follows. The Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under Section 240-77 Wetland Regulations of the zoning bylaws of the town of Falmouth on Monday, August 28th at 7:45 PM in the Selectmen Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on the application of Mark Romaine for permission to reconstruct a seasonal dock on the property located at 45 Toby Lane, East Falmouth. The area affected is Eel Pond. Interested parties may review the file for this hearing at the Selectmen's office per order of the Board of Selectmen with publication dates in the Falmouth Enterprise of Friday, August 18 and Friday, August 25th, 2017, with copy to abutters. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Again, Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. Mark Romaine owns the property at 45 Toby Lane. Toby Lane is on the waters of Eel Pond, has a single-family dwelling, and it has an existing seasonal walkway, ramp, and float that has a Chapter 91 license, and it originally received acknowledgement as being grandfathered in accordance with the Falmouth Conservation Commission grandfathering guidelines, which means to demonstrate it existed prior to August of 1979. So through the use of aerial photos, family dated photos, the previous owner was able to convince the Conservation Commission that this seasonal dock had standing to proceed to get a Chapter 91 license. The property was sold with the benefit of that Chapter 91 license to Mr. Romaine. And Mr. Romaine applied to the Conservation Commission for permission to rebuild the seasonal dock in a way that it would be environmentally improved and a little bit more robust as far as its strength, not its size. The Chapter 91 license and the grandfathering of the structure limited the footprint, if you will. But it really didn't have strength to safely secure a small recreational boat like Mr. Romaine has. I believe it's a 26-foot center console, typical recreational boat in this area. So we applied to the Conservation Commission to, instead of supporting the structure with PVC pipes that are installed to secure the walkway and galvanized steel pipes that secure the float in position, we applied for permission to substitute timber pilings, 10-inch diameter timber pilings, less pilings than pipes, spaced out with an increased span. Those pilings would remain in year-round, and the rest of the structure, the ramp, float, and the walkway that attaches to it would be removed on a seasonal basis. The float would remain the same size as the existing float, but it would be rotated from a position where it was perpendicular to shore to a position where it was parallel to shore, so that the boat would tie parallel to shore and it would tie in deeper water. Currently, when the boat or boats ties to the perpendicular float, at some low tides, the bow and maybe to the midpoint can ground out at low tide, and only the props are in the deeper water. So rotating the float pushes it into slightly deeper water, takes the float from, removes the float from a potential to ground, and the potential for the boat to ground at low tide is eliminated. So that's a environmental improvement. In addition, the walkway that leads out to the existing float is a low profile, only a couple of feet off the water, and it crosses a stretch of salt marsh, a sliver of salt marsh. It has planking, so there's shading. The new profile walkway, the new walkway has a profile, and it's on your plans that were filed, has a profile that elevates the walkway above the salt marsh, and that does two things. It allows public access along the shoreline, and it also provides for more sunlight penetration. In addition, the decking that Mr. Romaine will use is the through-flow 50% sunlight penetration decking that you've seen on other new piers. So that's another environmental benefit. We thought that driving the pilings one time, hopefully, unless there's a severe freezing, versus pipes that have the potential to be pulled out on a seasonal basis and have to be rejetted was a benefit. The Conservation Commission did issue an order of conditions. They did have a few findings and a couple of conditions that I think are beneficial environmentally and were adopted into their decision. They did make a finding that the commission found that the proposed structure will be more secure during storm events and will benefit the resource by allowing light penetration through the proposed pier. They did also find that the dock will not extend further landward. Again, we turned it so it was parallel to shore, but we didn't extend it. And they had a couple of special conditions of note. One was only one boat can tie to the dock, and making the float parallel to shore is almost a self-enforcing condition because it's difficult to tie on the backside of that float. And it is seasonal. The upper sections will be removed. The ramp and float will be hauled to a boat ramp, and there's a condition that they be removed by October 15th of each year. So I think that pretty much sums it up.
Any questions? Doug?
Certainly the posts on the walkway will stay in. Will the posts for supporting the float also stay in?
Yes. Yeah, all the posts will stay in.
How many posts is it that are on? Is that two posts on
There's two posts here.
Yeah.
And then there's two pilings here, and then two pilings at the end.
So those two in the end will be having nothing, they'll just be sitting in the water with no float or anything around them, no ramp leading to it during the off-season.
Correct.
What are the other docks in the area? Are there a lot of them?
Yeah, it's fairly,
I know the Toby Lane Association's the next piece
well,
of property.
it's pretty populated. There's a dock just north of here that was recently approved, one lot over from here that this board's reviewed. You saw the Toby Lane one. Across Eel Pond, there's several recreational docks that exist. I would say that there's several.
And nowhere near coming the 25% across the water?
Nowhere near, no, absolutely not.
Anyone else from the board have any questions for Mr. Purcell? Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak against this application?
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The second item under business is changing of hours and enforcement at the waste management facility swap shop. Mr. McConaty is...
He just stepped out.
Oh, I thought he was coming up to... Is he right there? Okay, I also note that
He didn't run away.
Linda Davis from the committee is also in the audience. Welcome.
Could we do the sign variance maybe while he's...
If he's right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, he's not?
He's not.
Yeah, Bill
Okay, we'll
Kerfoot's
move
here.
on then.
Bill Kerfoot's here.
Still not there. Still not there. I'm gonna move on, sorry. Okay, then we'll move on to...
Want to look at the Rotary Club craft fair?
Sure.
Pardon me, Madam Chair.
No, that works. That works. Oh, duh, of course.
I think.
Yeah, yeah, you did. Sorry. I was thinking chair, yeah.
Madam Chair, I need to disclose that I am an active member of the Falmouth Rotary Club.
Congratulations. I don't think that's a conflict. Ms. Cronin, if you go ahead and tell us what this is about.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is for requesting permission for signs, 2 banners and 11 sandwich signs, identical to what we've requested in the past few years, for this time for the 17th Annual Rotary Craft Fair. And I'm Bill Kerfoot of the Falmouth Rotary Sign Committee. This is our major fundraiser, and it provides funds for our educational scholarship.
Terrific.
And I assume you have permission from the 11 private properties?
Yes. The signs require a variance from you because they are placed on public property.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Terrific.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll go back to the changing of hours and enforcement at the waste management facility swap shop. And I welcome Linda. I also, of course, note that Mark Finner is on the committee. Thanks for attending this hearing, or not hearing, but issue. Mr. McConaty.
Good evening, Peter McConaty. I stepped out of the room for 1 second. I didn't realize that the first report was already completed. Peter McConaty, Deputy Director of Public Works. I'd like to speak about the pick of the litter, the swap shop tonight. Before I do that, I'd like to review some of the changes that we made to our compost facility and our waste management facility. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. They have been working, they got a lot of list of items that they've been trying to work with in town to have some of the trash issues, some of the solid waste issues taken care of. So I know they've been very active. Approximately a year and a half ago, Mark Finneman had brought a article to town meeting regarding the compost facility. And in conjunction, at the same time, Public Works was starting to work on the compost facility, changing the hours up there and changing the way we do business out of town waste coming into the facility. We changed the operation up there. We brought it down to 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. It did reduce the amount of material going into the facility, dramatically cut down on the amount of material coming in. And our highway superintendent, who is in the audience tonight, James Grady, is working with our contractor now. We're making good quality compost. We're able to get that thing stirred up and get some heat into it to get some good compost taken care of. So we're actually working on previous year's abundance of compost up there. We're actually able to knock it in and bring it down below to where we can process it and open the facility up some more. So that's working out very well. Also, approximately 2-3 months ago, we looked at changing the hours to the waste management facility and the compost facility. What had happened is the staff at the facility, the hours were from 8:15 to 3:30. So what happened at 3:30, the gates closed, and then it was the staff had to go around the site, make sure it was closed up, cleaned up, get everybody on the site.
the hours, their hours are till 3:30, so they were actually working overtime up there. So we were running into some overtime issues and different. So the easy fix was we cut everything back a half an hour. So instead of 8:15 to 3:30, we brought it from 7:45 to 3 o'clock. Works very well, gives it an opportunity to go up to the facility, drive to the facility, make sure everybody's out of there, close it out, do what they have to do, drive around the corner over to the compost facility, close that out, compact the public works if they had to. So this is a joint effort. It's been working out very well with the highway department, myself, and the solid waste advisory committee. The latest item that we'd like to take a look at is the pick of the litter. Pick of the litter is basically set up that it is open as long as the waste management facility is open. If it's bad weather, it does not open. But other than that, it is open the same hours as the waste management facility.
Peter, for anyone new to town, could you just describe what is pick of the litter?
So the pick of the litter is that if any residents in town have items, discarded items that they do not want to use anymore, furniture, baby items, glassware, anything that's not needed with it by them anymore, they take it up to the pick of the litter, the swap shop, and they can leave it up there for somebody else to come by if they need to pick up any furniture or small furniture items, baby furniture, what have you. It does work out rather well, and what it does is it keeps all those items out of the waste stream. So the items that are left outside after a short duration, Public Works, the staff at the facility does take those items up to the top of the hill and dispose of them. So it's maintained that way. But what we've had is it's open all the time that the waste management facility is in. So there's a lot of traffic going to the pick of the litter, the swap shop. So what we're trying to do is to see if we could cut the hours of that down to basically the same as the compost facility. 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, half days. It'll be open from 7:45 to 12 noon. And then what that does is that gives an opportunity for the staff at the facility in the afternoons to clean the place up, bring whatever has to be brought upstairs up to the upper level and dispose of in the containers. So I think it'll work on both sides very well. That would take care of the hours issue, the half a days for the 3 days a week. The other item is we'd like to do some enforcement of our existing facility that we have. This is the brochure that is at Public Works. It basically goes through the waste management facility, the pick of the litter, and the yard composting site. There's a fee schedule in it. It goes through the scrap metal piles, the white piles, everything that needs to be done up there. There is one small section of this that is on the pick of the litter. And just one item, it basically says that the gate attendant has the right to reject an item as unsuitable for the swap shop, and visits are limited to 1 per day for no longer than 1/2 hour. And we try to follow that, and we have been following that, but there are certain individuals that go up there and they'll spend 4, 5, 6 hours up there, and it just kind of makes it tough to run the operation, to run the swap shop, to run the operation. So we're trying to get a little bit more enforcement out of that. What I'd like to say is, of course, Linda Davis is here from the solid waste, the chair. This would be like a multi-prong approach. This is a phase 1 to bring it into the time and the enforcement. And then at some point in time, I know the town has been talking about the possibility of having like a volunteer policy in place where they can do volunteers at a later time. Once that gets developed and established, we can look into that. But what that will do for us right now is it'll pretty much give Public Works the ability to run the facility more efficiently.
Are the rules on the town website that you just pointed to in the pamphlet?
They are, and we've been adjusting this. We've adjusted it several times since last year in 2016. This latest one has revised January of 2017, and we actually revised it again in May or June with the hours shifting it back the half hour. So what we'll do is we'll revise it again with the, if this is approved with the pick of the letter.
Okay, I'm
with
going to
the hours
ask
adjustment.
Linda and Mark from the committee, do you have anything, comments or anything to add? Do you want to come up? Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman and Board of Selectmen. Linda Davis, I'm Chair of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And the committee is charged with looking at better ways of doing trash in town. Basically, that's it, without getting too specific. Well, first of all, I just want to recognize Carrie Parcell, who's here. She is the Barnstable County Assistant Coordinator. Do I have that right?
Municipal Assistance Coordinator. I work with Mass DEP, reducing and diverting trash and waste through recycling and composting.
And she's been a great resource.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
When the Solid Waste Committee looks at things to make recommendations, it has set some criteria in looking at things. And we look at how efficiently does it serve the community, the user, and how cost effective is it? I mean, you know, how are we using our money to provide that service? Very, very important. And so we looked at the, we've been looking at the waste management facility, and specifically the swap shop in the same way. The two issues is, as Peter had said, Mr. McConaughey had said, there's an abundance of material coming in, and it's difficult for the staff there to get a handle on it because of other responsibilities that are given to them. And so often, I mean, I have photographs that there was just stuff all over, and if it's left out and it's rained on, it becomes trash. And when it becomes trash, as you know, we have to pay somebody to haul that trash away, and then we have to pay a disposal fee. So we need to get a handle on what actually is trash, what goes in other places, such as the metal pile, and what really can be left for people who want to come in and poke through and see if they want the dishes, the household items, and so forth. So that we really need to take a close look at that, and reducing the hours is going to really help with that. I mean, I can see that. And the second issue is really the users. There are people up there, unfortunately, who don't obey the rules. And there have been attempts to enforce the rules in a variety of ways, and it really hasn't been satisfactory. I even spent some time with Mr. Duffy in working out some documents that maybe could be, sent to people who are habitual breakers of the law there, and that needs to be explored too, and I would say bring him on again to look at that. So enforcement, I think, is really important because there are people who don't use it now, because there are people there for a variety of reasons, make others feel comfortable, and there are people there that have, short of taking up residence there, feel that that is their prerogative to tell other people how to deal with trash. And unfortunately, they're not very knowledgeable, so they're not even helpful. They're actually counterproductive. So our committee has discussed this. We haven't taken a formal vote, but the last time there was we spoke about it, was a general consensus. Yeah, we got to get control of that facility, and as long as the public, is properly prepared and educated for the change in time and so forth. That was one of the concerns. So, and personally, I would say it's about time that we take control of that facility and serve the public and maybe do it in a more cost-effective way. One other thing is that we have developed a pilot program for volunteers being used there. We need to have the Board of Selectmen finish or you're doing something with a policy town-wide and volunteers, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Town council's looking at that.
Yes, and I had spoken to town council about that. And so when that is in place for the town, then we would recommend, put forth this volunteer program to make sure it's compatible with the town's program, if it so is needed, if it'll work. So, and I really, the committee really wants to thank Mr. Grady and Mr. McConerty for all they're doing. They're making a real attempt here to take control, and it's appreciated, not just as a committee member, but as a citizen in this town. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark?
I'd just like to add a couple of things. And eventually, along with the new computer program, we are hoping to get some cameras there so the people down in the trailer can monitor what actually goes on. And I'd also like for you to consider, when you are doing this volunteer, whatever, policy, you would keep in mind that the people that work there really need the ability to enforce these rules, which they currently don't have. And there are a select few individuals who, and of course the purpose of the pick of the litter is to keep the furniture and the heavy and the bulky items out and to use them, reuse them or whatever. But there are people who spend their day there just looking for the most valuable metals that go in there, for instance, aluminum, copper, and they take them out and it's a part-time job for them. And I mean, that's revenue that should be going into the town's coffers, and those people also need to be brought under control. I know it's not a pleasant subject, but it's a reality.
And, you know, it sounds like we'll be able to look at it going forward when the policy.
I think this is perfect. We make it a little smaller until we can get it under control, because it really needs to be under control. And I mean, these guys don't have any extra time. So we need a program of some sort.
Thank you. Anyone from the board? Megan?
Just briefly, just to echo, you know, I think that we, you know, solid waste in general is, you know, an enormous challenge for every community. It continues to grow, and you know, there's so many options that we haven't tried yet, that there are some exciting possibilities for other ways that we can deal with our solid waste. But I do think that, you know, the idea that Linda is raising, that the goal is to really provide a service, but also to look at sort of the bottom line. You know, we've talked about this before, that you know, the cost of disposing of our solid waste continues to go up. So if we're not innovative, you know, and don't continue to kind of be ahead of the curve, that'll be something that taxpayers, you know, burden that they're carrying. And I think that it can't be said enough that it's an extra, really, this is an enormous job that we've put on the DPW with all the other things that you guys do. So thank you. I mean, the swap shop is you know, hopefully limiting this will make it what it's supposed to be, which is a benefit and not an extra burden, which I think it has been for a while, for all the reasons that everyone has raised. So just, again, you know, huge thanks for really tackling what has been, I think people have raised the issue for a long time about it. So it's exciting to hear that there might be some movement in trying to contain that a little bit.
I would move approval of the recommendation of the change of hours and enforcement at the wastewater, at the waste management facility swap shop.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I also just want to commend the committee for I know there'll be a formal report that we'll hear a little bit later on Selectmen's agenda, but just, this is one of the very, very active committees that's gone as far as to reach out to the state and coordinate for terrific benefits for the towns. We appreciate that. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Just one last comment. We're looking at time frame. So we can update our brochures and get the brochures published on the website, and also that we can have brochures at Public Works. We're looking after Labor Day, maybe the first or second week in September. It'll give some time frame from the residents to get, and we'll change the signage at the facility, so they'll give some residents some time to get used to.
Change over anyway, all over town.
Right.
Terrific. Mark, did you have an ending note?
Yeah, just one thing. Carrie from the county has been very active with us, and between herself and Linda, we've been able to get tens and tens of thousands of dollars in grant money, and we're looking to double that or more in the near future and apply it to streamlining this process and saving the town money and extending perhaps even our window at the facility and board.
Great for the community, great for the environment. Thank you for that. Much appreciated.
And you're presenting in October, correct?
Yeah.
This, okay. 16. And Carrie, are you going to be able to?
As long as it's allowed. Some towns are very like, you don't pay taxes here.
Oh.
It's just
sandwich residents.
That's okay. No, it's a timing thing. It's a 15-minute report. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Selectmen meeting room improvements. Mr. Johnson-Staub?
Did we not have an appointment?
Oh, sorry. I don't know. I always drop off the end of the thing. Thank you, Doug. We want to move straight to you. We're going to switch back to interview, vote, and appoint committee member for Substance Abuse Commission. Welcome.
Thank you.
Ms. Schilling.
Hello. I have to say it's my first time here.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you want to be on the Substance Abuse Committee?
Well, as a woman in recovery, in long-standing recovery, and someone who has devoted most of her professional life to substance abuse treatment and recovery, I'm pretty passionate about it. So when Bev called and said, you know, you really need to put in an application, I very happily did that. I've worked with Gosnold and facilitated several federal grants here on the Cape. I live in Falmouth, obviously, and I just want to be part of what's coming up next, which is creating a strategic plan. I've had the benefit of working with any number of Bureau of Substance Abuse funded organizations to create strategic plans for them, and so I'm really anxious to be a part of that.
I just have to say,
Say what?
This made me feel so inadequate when I looked at your resume. This is so impressive.
It's only because I've been around a long time.
No. It's really impressive, and just the fact that you've done work related to trauma, which for a lot of folks is part of.
It's a huge part.
It's part of either what brings them to addiction or part of what they experience while using. So I think that really adds so much to the committee.
Well,
So,
thank you.
so I think it's just very exciting to see someone with this level of experience, and so thank you for applying.
Well, thank you for entertaining my application.
Questions from the board?
Just one quick
Doug?
one. Can you find someone else to join you so you guys can have 6 people?
Excuse me?
Can you find another person to join you so you can actually have 6 people and have a quorum to actually be able to hold your meetings? And you need, right now, I guess there are only 4 on the commission. It's 11 member commission.
Getting
So bring someone else with you, and I think it'd be great.
It is very, very important committee. Any other questions? Doug?
Sure.
With your huge professional experience, will you have patience for members on the board that are not as experienced as yourself?
Patients who are.
On a volunteer committee, I'm guessing this is your first time volunteering on a committee like this?
Well, perhaps on a committee like this, but certainly a huge part of what I've done through the years is engage people in change. I've been a catalyst for change most of my career, and because I've been fortunate enough to work for an organization that promotes cutting edge and best practices, a huge part of what I do is engaging people. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
You've got some patience.
Sometimes my mouth gets away from me, so.
I would move we appoint Kath Schilling to a term on the Substance Abuse Commission, term ending June 30th, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, fine, we're up to Selectmen's meeting room improvements. Mr. Johnson-Staub.
Grab that easel.
So if you bear with me for one moment, I'm going to move some furniture around to demonstrate what we're talking about here tonight.
Want me to get the desk?
No.
Okay, the proposal is not approved.
I'm just going to step up for 1 second. While
Sure.
he's moving that.
All right, so I won't try to stand in front of the light here, but the purpose of this discussion is to talk about this room and how we can improve the functionality and aesthetics of this room. We're fortunate to have some funding through an easement from Comcast that will fund a large portion of these improvements. We have some additional funds that are unrestricted that come through the Comcast cable account to help make some additional improvements to this room. And we looked at a variety of different layouts in the hope that we can maximize the number of seats, and found that the current layout is actually pretty good. We looked at really reorienting, and we weren't able to get any more seats by putting the table over here or over there or in the corner.
And speaking of that, would you introduce the we?
Thank you. Yes. So you really don't want me working on this by myself, because I definitely don't have the expertise to design audio and video for a meeting room. I was fortunate to work with Mary Pat Flynn, whom you all know certainly very well, needs no introduction. Valerie O'Connor, the IT director, and Chardell Newton, our facilities manager, as well as Deborah Rogers, the director of FCTV. We all worked together to put the concept, to look at these design options and put a concept together. We're at a point now where we'd like to get your reaction on some of the basic layout, so that we can, once we have agreement on the basic layout, we can then proceed with getting more detailed specifications and procurement. So again, after looking at a number of the different layouts and realizing that the board that has the largest number of members that meets regularly in this room is the Conservation Commission, and with alternates they can have as many as 10 members plus 2 staff members that they like to have close at hand for their proceedings. So we're proposing this L-shaped table that it shows 11 seats in this diagram. It could actually accommodate 12 fairly comfortably. Believe it or not, they've been squeezing 9 or 10 onto this table. The size of the table would be, of the main table on this wall, would be about the same length as the current table. We would propose to make it not as deep. Right now you've got a 3-foot depth on that table, and we would make it more narrow down to 2 feet. And then have it swing around as one unit to accommodate more either board members and or staff members. So that, one of the 2 main things that really jump out at you are the projector cart, sort of old technology, and the folding tables aren't a great look, and the 2 are sort of related as to why we have them. This room is more difficult than many others to eliminate the need for a cart, because the typical solution is to hang a projector from the ceiling. Our ceilings are too high for that. We could theoretically hang it from there, but we were advised that the length of that of the pole that it would be hanging from, and combined with the HVAC system, it would be shaking and it wouldn't provide a stable image. So what we're proposing is a series of monitors, which I'll get to in a moment. But first, again, the layout of the table is really what drives the decisions about where the monitors would go. So I sort of want to pause at this point and encourage your thoughts or questions about the layout of the table itself. The L portion that would go against the windows here would be on casters, so it would be a unit that could be wheeled away, and the thinking is that probably it would stay there most of the time, but when there was a meeting that you knew was going to be jam-packed, we could actually bring in another row of chairs by removing that, and that depends on the board. So for the Board of Selectmen, clearly we don't need 11 seats, So you could certainly wheel that section away and accommodate more seating.
So on the width of the table, you see that there's only maybe 6 inches that this board isn't using, and and that 6 inches is encroached upon by the name tags. And then if we also put a monitor, only because with the size of this board's agenda and the fact that we do execute documents during the meeting, we flip them through, there's sort of a lot of moving pieces. So moving this to 2 feet, I'm wondering, that
might be a little narrow.
Yeah.
And even more so for conservation
Absolutely,
committee. I
I was
mean,
gonna
they're
say that.
constantly, they have the full, we
Those
only have
big-
that every once in a while, but they constantly have, multiple pages of that.
And
are almost
drawings.
Plan size
Plan
papers.
size, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty narrow for Conservation Commission hearings.
Yeah, I mean, part of the, absolutely, we can stay with a 3-foot table or look at a 2.5-foot table.
Yeah, 30 inches.
There is some hope that we're moving away from the need for those large paper plans. If
Oh,
we
yeah?
have better monitors, then, we can have those. And more and more of the engineers are able to provide that in PDF format, so they could be projected onto the monitors or onto the, whether it's the personal monitors or on the wall as well. But point taken.
But I guess I've always wondered, I mean, I understand that, people need room to roll out and get out of here, but we are really far away from the wall. I mean, even if you kept the table this general size, I mean, there wouldn't really be a reason why you couldn't move this area slightly back to accommodate that L shape, coming out from the side.
Absolutely, that's part of the plan. There is now, I think it's a microphone jack that's
Right, which
coming
is
up
why
through
we
the
can't,
concrete
yeah.
floor. So that is part of the plan to eliminate that and push the table back as far back as code allows.
Even just finishing up the monitor point, because of you'd need multiple screens for each person, because you're looking at multiple documents at the same time, as would be conservation. So even trying to go a little more paperless, I'm not sure that answers the whole problem. Doug?
And for our board, I think we would always need to have that side table for the recording secretary.
You would always need to have this table there? Well,
Or we use another folding table, which gets us back to.
yeah, it may be that the recording secretary could sit up there at this, for those crowded meetings, could sit up there, and the assistant could sit in the audience. It also may be if that, I don't know, that wedge, that pie-shaped piece there, if that stays, again, that would be a little bit more space. Or even if the end of this table is open, to pull in a seat there, that would accommodate a little bit more space.
Great, thank you. Move on.
Sure. So, if we're comfortable with the layout of the table, and we can certainly go stick with the 3 feet if that's what the board is more comfortable with.
Or just 30 inches, just shorten it by 6,
Yeah.
30 inches is typical counter depth.
Mm-hmm.
Great suggestion, Sam.
Okay. Great.
Yes, probably.
So folks at home probably can't see it, but we have laid out with blue tape on both ends of the walls here the size of the monitors that we are looking at for the walls. And for certain, we would need the monitor behind the Board of Selectmen table. That would be the primary screen that the audience would be looking at. We'd like to also supplement with a smaller screen between these 2 windows toward the back of the room, so that those who are in the back of the room looking the longest distance to the monitor on the far wall would have something a little bit closer that they could look at. One of the things that we wanted to talk to you about was this monitor in the back. Do we need that monitor if we have individual monitors? And in front of the town manager is a sample of the monitor that we would have for each of the 11 seats at the board member table. We would have one of those individual monitors projecting whatever's being projected on the screens. We could potentially go with both. We could have the individual monitors and the large monitor.
And I'm sorry, is there one proposed for here as well, or just?
No.
So we can't do a rear projected monitor, Sween.
So the challenge with this wall is this podium. So with this podium here, even if the, the feed isn't coming from that direction, if it's back, it can be backlit.
Well, it's LCD, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all going to be wired and backlit,
Right.
so that's not a problem.
But you're
the
standing in
problem
front of
is
it.
I'm standing in
Right.
front of it.
So, let me just clarify, so where the person presenting, if they needed to use their little red dot to point things out, where would they be doing that?
The person presenting would be presenting from here.
Right.
The red dot is a little bit more of a challenge. I don't know if that's something that they might
cursor.
actually, there will be a computer here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could be a cursor.
And that would just show up on,
that's gonna
on
show
all
up
of the
on
monitors? Okay,
Yeah,
all right. No,
exactly.
I'm just, thinking about how people see, this, everybody getting to see the same presentation.
Right,
And you-
but
and you think-
you see the point, Doug, about I'm
Right.
standing here, and if there's a monitor, you push it.
But if I move you 3 feet to the right, is that just too weird a position to be presenting to both us and to the audience?
Well, it's going to, no matter where you put this podium, it's going to be obstructing, views from somewhere.
Right.
So, I suppose we could do
I'm saying you do that and that.
that and that. Yep.
Just this gives you a much larger screen for everyone to see, and that we don't really have as much space as we do on that wall.
Also, I don't like the idea, we learned from moving town meeting places, it's not a good idea for the Board of Selectmen to be disengaged from the audience. And the idea of us trying to look at, we're not engaged with the audience, whereas here, we're speaking to folks and we're looking at the presenter and the information.
Right.
With respect to the back wall, when there is a big crowd, there are going to be people standing in front of that. So that's less important, I think. So your concept about having, for the audience, a screen over there seems to make sense. But I think as Doug mentioned, I think those ideas of, we've got to have a line of sight this way to move, just kind of work that out if there's any way to do it. I think that's, very important for community engagement and for the, the selectmen to be interacting with, with folks that are physically here.
Thanks for bringing that up, because I had the same exact thought about it, that any barrier and any tendency for us to focus on something short-term when we should be interacting with the people, I think it's a
line of sight
barrier.
is to the person speaking and to what they're presenting is the same vision, as opposed to,
Yes.
if I'm having to look at that monitor, but you're talking to me,
Right.
it disengages the conversation in a way.
But
Sam to finish and then Doug?
Well, but the other question I have is, what about the flags and our seals? I mean, you start using that space, where do those go? And those are pretty important icons in this town.
Right. They move. They go to either this corner or that corner. All three as a unit together, I think.
Doug?
I got to say, I've always questioned the layout that we have. I think this new layout is a lot better, with the table going this way and the L-shaped, and the podium over here. I also think that Peter's got a great point, that you're blocking the view. We've always had an obstructed view for the audience. Every time someone's presenting, they can't really see the screen, they can't see the easel. So what we have isn't really working very well. And I don't think it's really a problem that we look at the screen behind the audience, because we're still looking at the audience.
They're going to be standing a lot of times in front of it. People are tall.
Well,
that could be
stand, we don't need
raised.
to allow them to stand, I don't think, do we?
Where they would otherwise be sitting on the floor.
Yeah, I guess, I think the problem is we're really constrained by this space, which is a
Right.
really hard space. But if the main goal, in my mind, the main goal is that you're allowing for as many people to be in the room as want to be in the room and as possible, it's in a safe way, and for, the folks who are on the agenda to present in a way that we can fully see their presentation, everyone can, and is, conducive to a conversation. I do think that that's kind of a natural, even with the problems that space has, that's sort of a natural focal point, and it's the largest sort of unused part of this room. It's not broken up with windows, it's not broken up with, anything else. So if there's a way to kind of make, again, it's somewhat problematic, I get the podium is a problem, but it seems like that would be the place to have some kind of monitor where, I don't know, maybe we keep some of these the idea of that one there, maybe there's one over our head or something like that, but it seems like that, you know.
Could the podium go here?
Well, what I've seen in most meeting rooms, that, the challenge that you want is that you want the presenter to be able to see the board and the audience.
Okay.
So, what we really, I think, want to avoid is having the situation where sometimes you do, if you've got a committee reporting to the Board of Selectmen where they're sitting at a table here, it's okay. I mean, they have eye contact with the board, but the audience is completely left behind.
We can move them to the right. The board can still engage, folks can still see them, and we can still see.
Slide this down.
Slide that, and the screen that way.
yes.
Exactly. I think that would work.
And
We
I
can
will-
always move.
In conjunction with that, I want to mention something that Mark pointed out. So if you have, instead of doing the curve on the end, if you have it, more linear, that might give you your extra seat down that way as well. So just something, I didn't want to go by that too far.
So this is great feedback. So the monitors, point taken, you don't want to be looking down, so we'll work for others, we'll look at other solutions. We will absolutely look at this wall. I just want to describe one more of the challenges, which is that people bumping their heads on the monitors is apparently an issue that has been experienced. So in terms of the large size, it is going to come out from the wall a little bit. So we may need to put in a barrier so that people, literally can't walk into it. Ideally, it might be, if it's primarily for the board, it might be tilted out a little bit. Anyway, so those are some of the challenges that caused us to look for someplace other than this wall.
Maybe even the podium could be used as that barrier rather than having someone here move them. It's just something to consider doing the other
Yeah,
side.
so we'll play with that some more and see if we can get something that works on this wall and still leave this monitor and still leave this monitor.
Right, makes a lot of sense.
And I can see the tremendous amount of work that's been done, and plus the consultation with all the various people that are working with you, the logistics, being able to concretely think about various ways we use the room, how crowded does it get, when do we have overflow, where are they looking, how does FCTV pick up everything and have the right set of lines for everything they have to present in back. I mean, there's just a tremendous amount of thinking, so.
And different boards operate in different ways.
Absolutely.
Yes, they have different priorities, right.
Exactly.
I wouldn't think you'd need 4. I mean, if we're going here and here, I'm not sure you need both of them.
Yeah, if this screen is not tilted
Right.
toward the board, then the 3 might work. Yep.
How much did we just save?
No, I think the price tag went up.
I was just going to say, as
A
far
bigger
as
monitor.
all these multiple monitors here, it's just more stuff to break, too.
Yeah, they're portable and, they're a little, they were more subject to wear and tear for sure.
Right.
Yep.
I just think to keep it somewhat, I mean, this upgrade and update is so necessary, but I think also just to keep it, simple in the sense that, focusing on these type of screens and fixing the layout is going to make a much bigger difference and impact than the screens, just because those really just impact the folks that are sitting up at the table. And if they have somewhere else to look already, we don't need them, and if we can make this space more user-friendly, particularly for other committees and boards that have more members, I think that will go a long way to just, you always feel bad that other bodies are kind of crammed in at a table or are, putting up card tables on a regular basis. I mean, there should be some, I think, professionalism to the space for what goes on here. So I think it's really helpful to see some of the options.
And I like the additional seats being, we're doing more, coordination with other committees at board meetings, so I think that facilitates it a little bit. Doug, and then Doug?
But not enough. I mean, if we were doing a meeting with the planning board, that's not enough space.
Right.
Right,
So
so
we
you'd
do
still
have to make
need,
sure
still
you're gonna need
need a
something
portable
over here.
table here.
Yeah.
Right.
And
make sure-
that might still be the plastic folding table.
But if the screen and the barrier's coming out a little bit, we've got to be careful that may make that much harder to do.
And
With a header there, you could recess the monitor into the wall.
Yeah.
Doug?
And more importantly than any of the furniture or other improvements is the feed of the audio and visual has to be fixed. And I don't know if that's part of this project, but that's our biggest problem with this room.
And I
You
think it
sit
is.
at home and
wasn't-
you can't see or understand what's being said because of the poor quality.
Wasn't there something that I read about upgrading it to HD?
Yeah, the cameras
Right.
will be replaced. We have the funding to replace the cameras with HD cameras, which Debbie's very excited about. The audio is always very challenging. I was somewhat surprised to learn that we have a PA system for this room. It's never used for two reasons. One, because if you try to broadcast a meeting while using the PA system, it produces feedback. It just doesn't, you can't do it, it doesn't work. And secondly, when the meeting isn't being broadcast, there's no one in the booth, and people don't realize that they could potentially find a key to access the PA system and turn it on. But I think that rarely happens. I think most of the time that you have a large enough crowd that you need a PA system, it's probably being broadcast. So that is a second phase of the project, and could be expensive, but I think it can come from the unrestricted cable funds. So it is something that we hope to be able to tackle.
Sam?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize what, Doug and Sue were mentioning. That's the social dynamic of them. The fact that you want people to basically be looking toward the common focus, and the speaker can look and gesture and point, which is a natural process. You're not always going to use the cursor. So I think that's an important part of the dynamics of these meetings as well.
Yep, fair point. I did want to make one other point, and Julian brought up a really important thought, which is that we sometimes do have crowds that we cannot accommodate in this room, standing or otherwise. So we're going to put a monitor on the outside of the room. That doesn't buy us a whole lot. There's not a lot of standing room outside of this room, but we can do that, and it at least is helpful for people queuing up on the agenda to know when they need to plow through the crowd to come into the room. But also, we can put a monitor in the old water room and have that be a satellite room for those who want to be at town hall and to hear what's going on.
Would it be the monitor of this, what we're showing, or would it be FCTV?
It will be the, good question. It would be the FCTV feed, because that way they get all of the audio and visual that the viewers from home are getting of this meeting. Right.
So that raises an issue with me. This is not going to be a touchscreen monitor where you can zoom in if you want to see detail.
It's not going to exist at all, because you just gave me the feedback that says those monitors are not a good solution.
Okay.
They're out the window.
Be a second problem in my mind.
So is there any other barriers to the audio and visual feed to FCTV? Will it be a high quality, or is there a feed problem?
The video will certainly be improved with the cameras. The audio, as I said, I'm sure we can improve upon it. We haven't really dived into it yet, and I know from past experience that it's not as simple as just buy some new equipment and everything's fixed. It's this whole interaction of behavior and technology, and it's something
And
I'm sure we can
acoustics of a
improve
room.
upon it, but I don't want to give you the impression that we can just
'Cause I'd rather spend less on furniture and more on improved technology.
Sam, the one thing that the person at the computer could do is they could zoom in on their picture, and all the monitors would then zoom in.
Makes sense.
I think the other thing, as far as picking up feed, we have this problem of you can't leave the podium if you're not sitting, one of the members of whatever board's here, without having to take the mic with us. We could actually have a mic on the floor, if you will.
Sure.
That could be switched on and off so that people in the audience don't have to come up to the podium. Somebody who's a presenter can remain there, and they could still get to a mic and give a little bit better pickup.
Right. So this is a great little example of the complexity of audio. There are remote mics, piece of cake.
I understand.
Sometimes they work.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't work. So I think the reason that there's a wired monitor is because they are that much more reliable. But I mean, truly, the technology keeps improving, and we can get a portable microphone and see how that goes.
Well, just a little bit of experience when I was on the school committee. We got the clip-on mics for each member of the school committee, and we still had audio problems, so you're right about that.
Yeah.
And I want to really emphasize and amplify something that Doug Brown just said, and I think everyone on the board will agree to. We really are really focused on less comfort and more on facility of communication. And so I think that with that in mind, as you work through this process, it would be a great idea to phase it and kind of let us know, when, what's the phase 1, what's the phase 2. I know there's some, energy concerns for the build for the room, and we'll be working with those as well. So if we could do this in a comprehensive manner so that folks will know what's coming after this first phase, I think that would be very helpful as well. It will also help us integrate and plan for that eventuality, so that whatever we do here, we have in mind, if there are going to be, maybe consistent heat eventually in the room or something like that. How do we need to look at our plans now so that that eventuality, might be more economically installed? So, Ms. Braga?
That comment was for me, so I'm gonna. I'm wondering, are you getting, and I'm sure you must be, but are you going to get some feedback from other committees that generally use this room? I'm just thinking there may be some things we're not even thinking about that are sort of on their radar of concern.
Right.
On the upcoming meeting, I don't mean to step into your answer, you're probably going to say the same thing, but we can make it a topic. Our next joint meeting is, in fact, I think Conservation and Planning will both be here. Is it October, Mr. Suso?
October 14th, I believe.
So maybe if you would maybe give the Reader's Digest version of this, or whatever you think is proper.
Okay, I did solicit input from the staff members. It's very complicated and with a lot of scenarios, and it's hard to get 4 people to agree on what's best, so to try to involve 50 people
No, and I don't
exactly what the
right.
best solution is might be.
Right, I'm just wondering, there may be just, again, something that none of us here are thinking of that is like a consistent problem for a particular committee. So I mean, I get it. It's, certainly, we would never get this project done if we were waiting for everyone to agree.
Right.
But I think just to open it up, if somebody's got sort of that hot button thing that this is a problem every time, we meet.
Like size of plants or
Yeah, or some, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, again.
No, it's a good thought. I think we can have each of the staff members go back and present the
Better.
design to their committees, get the feedback, and
A bullet
filter
list
it
of
through.
anything, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
But
Better.
maybe not discuss it with the joint meeting.
That's a much better idea.
Well, this has been very helpful.
Thank you. This has
The
been
first
really great.
the first thing we really needed to know is, I know that the table's not your priority, and it wasn't ours either, but you really can't place the monitors and the cameras until you know where the table is.
Right.
So we're off and running.
Lots of
Thank
good
you.
work. There was
Really
one
helpful.
question from the audience, if you want to come up.
Is this your first time at one of these meetings, ma'am?
I'm Kathleen Murray, and I have been coming to these meetings longer than any of you people. So I have all kinds of, as an observer.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is really good, and I'm really excited. I like it, it's higher. When this is low, half the people back here cannot see it. So it's got to be high enough to see. And the sound has to be good enough to be able to hear everything. We miss a lot of the words. But you have to work with FCTV because they have one system and this is another system. So I think that's very important. And I think you can get more chairs in here and still follow the fire department rules. And there's no reason that, you can't get everybody in for some things, but there is a limit, I know, according to the fire department, and you will have to follow that. So I do think there's a lot of positive things, and I think more than one place to see it is good, because here, anybody on this side can't see this. You have to be over on that side. So you have to have more than one place. And I think if you have it on your monitor, it should be the same thing that's on the screen, and that would actually help with following open meeting laws. And that's basically it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Great
Kathleen.
comments.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Terrific, Peter. Thanks for the hard work. Thanks for everyone who worked on that. Next, we have approvals for minutes of meetings, starting with the public session on July 31st, 2017.
On page 4, under the discussion paragraph, paragraph 2, it starts talking about Attorney Duffy. And then to the note, Attorney Duffy notes the shellfish policy. That should be Doug Jones. It was my statement, not Mr. Duffy's.
Okay?
On page 3, if I might
Yep.
suggest,
Go ahead.
the next to the last paragraph, doesn't really in the last sentence in that, it seems to me applicants were printed similarly because.
Applications.
Applicants were printed. Yeah, but,
Applications.
you know, we could just simply strike the first 5 words and just simply say the commercial shellfish license existed first and the town should have to petition the legislature for specific. I'm not sure that we need those first few words. Anyway, that would be a correction I would
Mr. Suso,
recommend.
did you get that, or whoever's?
I'm hoping that Peter did it. I apologize, I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you say that again?
Sure. And do you understand where I'm talking about? So we're on this, page 3.
Page 3,
Paragraph 2 from the bottom.
Yeah, paragraph.
okay, where it says Attorney
Okay,
Duffy.
This third line down where it starts out, applicants were printed similarly because, obviously that doesn't make any sense. I would just simply say drop those first 5 words and start with the commercial shellfish license existed first, and the town would have.
What happened is that the applications by our town board were printed with the request for the residency requirement.
I got you.
And that's the reason people thought they existed.
So I think if we change the word to applications,
Right.
then
Okay.
it makes, I think it's more in line with what was discussed.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
one word.
Gotcha.
Is that it for that,
Let's see.
July 31st?
Page 8. Let's see, let me.
Page what? 8?
8.
That was a long read.
It was.
Oh, yeah, under, where it says, the paragraph under 9, Scott Lindell Chair, his report, I think we did not approve the subject of this discussion in 2016. I think it actually should be Bikeway's plan was endorsed by the Board of Selectmen in 2016. It was the overall plan that we endorsed. I'd like to see that
Yes.
kind of cleared up a little bit.
Yes, I think that's true.
Inserting that detail. And other than typos, that's,
All right, is there a motion with those changes?
I move that we approve as changed.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have August 14, open session.
I move approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye. Done.
Next, we have executive session minutes for April 24, 2017.
I move approval and release.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have executive session May 1st, 2017.
I would move approval and authorize release for public access. This is all historical.
I would second that.
I think it's okay. I don't think it, I think it's water under the bridge for what's noted, right?
Mhm.
Are we looking at April 24th? session
Yes,
two?
we
May
are.
22nd.
The only
Oh.
hesitation for me is I'm not
Oh, we're back on April.
schooled on the laws about document requests based upon released minutes. And so that's my concern.
So I can respond that any documents that were presented at that executive session would become a public document.
Yeah,
But
so
I-
remember what was,
I think
I
it
don't
would
remember
be.
what was presented, so maybe we need to wait.
Yeah, I think we
Oh.
need to wait. It's premature. We're getting here, but I think there's no more downside than
That's
up.
fine.
Can we
Okay.
clarify, are
I
we
hear
on
you.
July 31st?
Pardon?
Are we on July 31st?
No, we're on April 24th, executive session.
Oh, we went back.
Yep.
Okay.
So is there a
So
motion with
move-
respect to that?
Yes, I move approval, do not release.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Next, we have executive session for Monday, May 1st, 2017.
Move
Oh,
approval
wait a
and
minute.
release.
What about the executive session 2 on April 24th?
We just did.
We
We just did that.
Yes.
I'm on-
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm,
That's okay.
It's out of
I was,
order. So we're May 1, executive session 1,
Gotcha.
May 1.
Motion to approve and release
Yes,
on that.
second.
agreed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have the executive session minutes for session 2, May 1st.
Move to approve and not release.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have the executive session minutes for Monday, May 22nd, 2017.
I move that we approve and authorize release to the public.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have the executive session minutes for Monday, June 22nd.
I move approval, do not
June
release.
26th, sorry.
Move approval, do not release.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the executive session minutes for Monday, July 31st, 2017.
Same, move approval, do not release, unless anyone has a, I see a circle, is there a correction there?
Yes, let's see. Sorry.
Is it, can we just
On
hold
page,
it?
well,
Is
on
it
page
some-
2, can we, there's a number of 45 million. I don't think that's correct. I think it should be 4.5 million, maybe. Somebody should look into that, because that 45 million.
Why don't we
Outrageous.
hold that and look in, we'll just hold that set next?
Sure. And
We
also, there's an initial FD should be Frank Duffy, so we'll clean that
Okay.
up on second paragraph on page 1.
And then we have executive session, session 2 for August 14, 2017.
Move approval but not to release.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we just have one that we need to revisit.
Great.
It's obviously a typo.
Yes.
Exactly.
Individual selectmen reports.
Well,
Doug?
I went to the beach committee meeting, and it was less controversial than last month. It was a nice report of all the hard work that these young people have been doing on our beaches, and it was a little emotional for Mr. Magardo, who really takes his job to heart. So it was a nice, positive meeting and very enjoyable. And as a follow-up to that, I went to the beach on Saturday at Old Silver, and I happened to, it was a funny thing, because I was, just happened to get there about 9 o'clock, and there were some kids playing beanbag toss, cornhole game. And then, almost as if it was choreographed, a little bit later, some kids were playing with a soft football, another group, separate, and then a third group of young girls was playing with a round beach ball, all off to the back, out of the way. Nobody was bothering them. And I was thinking, you know, how harmless is all this? And then, a little while later, a young guy and a girl started playing Frisbee, like right next to us. It was really close, and it was getting to the point where I was about to say something to the kids, and then they decided that the beach was getting crowded and they put it away. But it was a very interesting experience with all we've been discussing.
Test the guinea pig.
You've got a premonition of an upcoming discussion by the board when we do the warrant article.
Right.
Sam?
Sure. I attended the Tony Andrews Working Group meetings on the 15th, and they're continuing to work forward and working out some of the details of recommendations. Volunteered for the Falmouth Road Race as part of the Rotary Club membership, and was this time, instead of being in the VIP tent up front, was behind the finish line, and had the good fortune of being able to escort the second place U.S. women's runner back to the press tent and chat with her, make sure she got some water to hydrate with. But it was a great event and a huge turnout of volunteers. It's pretty typical of every road race, but I think I'm going to stick with the Rotary Club from now on, because you get to see more action back there. Attended the NOPSCA board meeting last Tuesday. I'd like to just mention a couple things that are moving along. First of all, the renovation of the Lighthouse Tower will start on September 8th, which is, I think, next Friday. So that the tours that have been given for the light are going to stop. They expect that renovation to be done by the end of November. So hopefully it will be available for that Friday of the Christmas by the Sea, where they usually have Christmas carols there, and the lighthouse is, the light tower is open for people to go up and enjoy the view from there. But
And I understand that with the light off, the mariners will be informed, so in terms of?
Well, I don't know, I think this renovation is going to be going on they'll keep the light going. And
Okay.
plus there is an separate emergency light that hangs off of one of the railings, so I'm sure there's going to be a light. I think the Coast Guard is going to insist that something is going on.
That keep on, okay.
Yeah, so that will be accommodated.
It's just the tours that'll be interrupted.
That's right. There won't
Okay.
be access that we've been doing on, or the board has been hosting on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes occasionally on a Saturday. But it's good to know that there's been enough money raised, and there's a contract let now for a contractor to come in and to actually renovate the tower itself. So we should see a relatively upgraded tower by the end of November of this year, which is good. I might mention that the Mass Cultural Council gave an opportunity for the Friends of Knobscut to submit an application, and they did receive an award. So that's going to be used for the Keeper's House renovation and the creation of that Maritime Museum that will be there. There's still a lot of fundraising that's got to go on to complete the renovation of the Keeper's House and create that museum. So there's a funding challenge is still there. So if you want to bid on any of those lighthouse silhouettes, why, that'll help a lot. So, and any other opportunity that this community has to give to this effort, because it's such an amazing icon of Falmouth. So anyway, so that just wanted to bring you up to date on where the Friends of Knobscut were in pursuing this renovation and upgrade to that facility.
Thanks, Megan.
Just, I was away, so I didn't attend, and actually none of my committee meetings meet on that week of the month. But just one thing I noticed, we were away in a town where they don't require recycling, and the amount of trash that we generated with our recycling, I mean, it's just, appropriate for tonight's topic, was astounding. That even, the kids that were on the trip were like, because of course we forced them to take the trash out, but they were amazed. I mean, when you really, I'm so used to anyway doing recycling, and the trash that, you separate out and put out, it's just incredible. So it's just a nice moment of awareness as to how much, separating out your recycling really does reduce the trash that you're taking out.
Isn't Falmouth nice?
Yes, and it was just, it felt terrible to be throwing away all of those recyclables. So just something that was, on my mind and apropos to tonight's topic. So
I just, one thing on the road race, I had an opportunity to speak with Speaker DeLeo, whose son regularly runs the race, and mentioned things like the hotel tax, just trying to get a little sense of how fast that's progressing. But great event for lots of folks to be able to get together and chat. And I just want to tee up before Doug's report, town manager's report. Mr. Suso is going to make this a little bit more expansive, so listen for that. I'm kind of psyched to hear it. Anything from you, Doug?
Do you want to report on the meeting we had here on Rotary?
Go ahead, go for it.
So with Dylan Fernandez leading and taking charge, Simran and I met with DOT to look again at the issue of a roundabout at the intersection of 151 and Route 28A. And we did reiterate the board's vote that we did not support a roundabout there and would prefer a signalized intersection. DOT is continuing to insist that the roundabout would be safer and ultimately less expensive. I don't think we had any resolution of the meeting, but we did reiterate the board's vote that we prefer a signalized intersection.
And just a follow-up on that, because we did have the public safety officials at the meeting, which would be the chief of police, the fire chief, Peter McConaty for DPW.
Brian Curry was also town planner.
And also town engineer.
Town engineer Jim McLaughlin.
Was, and the one of the follow-up things that we discussed was, and that Dylan Fernandez mentioned, is that the state, since they're really focused on doing a roundabout, but have not been able to give us one example of a similar situation, well-functioning roundabout, They were gonna take a look at least, perhaps they can find roundabouts that are near bike paths, near parking for bikers, and so that there can be a more real situation discussion of what they see as benefits, because at this point, they've been unable to find specifics that really take Falmouth situation into the context of their analysis. So we'll be getting more information on that, as I understand it, Mr. Suso.
Correct, and we'll be confirming that that's to be a byproduct of this meeting is further analysis and some additional information back.
I also attended a steamship hearing that was held at the library with Mr. Brown in response to the spring and summer schedule for the ferries for next year, in which they took testimony about people's concerns about the early morning boats, and also some people's concerns about not getting of the early boats. It was about an hour and a half of testimony, and I did express that we had not discussed next year's schedule as a board. Did reiterate our statement that we made a month ago of we prefer not to have freight traffic before 6:30, and then express some of my personal views about my experience with traffic this year and with trucks, but was not speak on behalf of the board for that part of it.
Well, thanks for attending that meeting. Thank you both.
Just a comment on your meeting about that roundabout issue. Right up the road, we've got a roundabout that could be reworked. It's very unsafe as you enter northbound from 28A. I think it's very deceiving.
It's hard to know what.
Yeah, it's a rotary, so people on it have right of way, but as you're entering, it's very easy to just keep going.
It doesn't look like your normal rotary.
It's more like an ovalry.
Right. That's a good point.
It's definitely a dangerous.
Yeah, so if they want to spend some money, we've got other problems like the hospital lights, the traffic jam-ups. There's a lot more things we can fix instead of taking apart an intersection that's pretty functional.
I did ask a question about the speed limit signs on 28 as it comes to hospital lights. And they say the next step is to do a speed study. What typically happens with the speed study is they analyze how fast the cars are going.
I know.
And then we adjust the speed limit signs to match the speed the cars are actually going.
So it'd be faster.
And sometimes you'll end up getting the speed limit signs increased as opposed to
Do they
decreased.
average it over a year?
They do.
I'm not sure exactly how they do
Okay.
the
They
study.
look at the median of the
Okay.
speed.
They throw the hoses out and
It's be careful what you ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they said they look at the 85th percentile, actually,
Yeah.
which was a little surprising. So you tend to get a fairly enhanced speed overall.
We don't want to do that, we built time. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Several items. The board had asked for a draft summary of anticipated November town meeting warrant articles, and I have transmitted that to the board, a single-page summary. I want to note that I've worked with Frank Duffy, Jennifer Petit, and others in compiling this list, and the board will note that it includes several petition articles. And this was as of last Thursday at the end of the business day, so I want to acknowledge that that list of petition articles will expand by, I believe, 3 or 4. And as a reminder, the board is scheduled to vote the articles and execute the warrant at your next meeting on Monday, September 11th. And Board of Selectmen recommendations on individual articles will be deliberated at your meeting on Monday, September 25th, and that is of course, the schedule which Selectmen voted for November town meeting several weeks ago. And Madam Chair, if you'd like, I can walk through this draft summary or let it stand as transmitted to the board. And welcome your comments. Obviously, considerably more information will be forthcoming, and my purpose was to provide a brief summary of what is knocking on our door to date.
Well, sure. No, I think just to know what's upcoming is sufficient, so that, for our planning purposes.
Can I ask about a couple that don't show up on your list here? That's the Disabilities Commission membership increased to 10. It's officially limited right now, but I gather it takes some kind of a change of our...
That matter we've had some discussion with Frank Duffy about. Currently, you can go to 9,
And the dilemma with continuing...
With what authorization, I guess is the question.
9 was voted by town meeting. And in an initial search by town council with the town clerk, he was unable initially to find the authorization to go to 9 and thought we were limited to 7. And a subsequent review determined that actually 9 had been voted and 9 is available to the board. The dilemma with increasing it beyond 9, which we could have a bylaw on with the board's concurrence, is the majority of members have to be disabled. And so increasing from 9 to a larger number does not resolve that challenge that you have currently. In fact, it complicates the problem we have, which 2 out of every 3 appointments going forward need to be disabled individuals, and we currently do not meet that standard that a majority are not disabled. So strongly suggesting that you consider continuing to work with 9 as we adjust the number of disabled individuals rather than expanding the total number and potentially create a further quorum problem for the Disability Commission.
And I think the commission was working with you on that.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I hadn't heard about the expansion to 9.
Yeah,
so
great
that's
question.
quite helpful.
Yeah, it is helpful.
The other item I was wondering about is the mooring renewal regulation changes that we've been hearing about. Are they going to be ready for an article for November?
We had not anticipated bringing an article on that. Rather than considering doing it in the spring, I'm not sure that that requires a bylaw change. We can double check that.
I was just thinking about the timing. I mean, people generally are signing up for moorings, you know, starting at the first of the calendar year. And didn't know whether any changes should be instituted before that so that it can be published.
We can check with
publicized.
town council, that's a good
Will
point.
do.
Okay.
We will check with council on that.
Those are 2 that came to mind.
Okay.
And I, well, we'll wait and see. I'm sure there are others in the works, so I know that I had heard of one pertaining to fields that was going to be a petitioner's article. I don't know if that's, I had.
I don't know if we got anything on the Fields issue or not, but of
Okay.
course, that is a matter that's coming to the board as part of the capital plan.
Yes.
So you will
So
see
perhaps that
some
person stepped it back.
strong suggestive, proactive action there, limited only by funds available, of course,
Well, that's
to
all
the
we
town. So,
But they are in pretty poor condition, so
indeed.
we need to be responsible.
Okay, continuing, I also developed a summary, really, of what I call town bicycle-related improvement initiatives over the past several years. That, I know, Madam Chair, thank you. You made the suggestion that you felt it would be helpful, and I believe Megan may have as well as a liaison to that, the Bikeways Committee. To take a few minutes and remind ourselves of what really has been an extraordinary investment
Agreed.
in bicycle amenities and certainly playing a role in Falmouth being designated a bicycle-friendly community. And I think we have a PowerPoint slide, which I'll...
The projector is dead.
Oh, the projector has died, so...
Apparently my slide killed it.
It doesn't like change. It's like a lumber.
Self-fulfilling.
That's right.
What's this about, an LCD monitor?
Let's just step that up.
Julian, I tried.
Well, maybe you can just
okay,
give us a summary.
It won't work.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe we have a problem with a bulb in the projector,
Yeah.
which is a good reason to upgrade our technology. But I want to reassure the board that my intentions were good as it relates to having a PowerPoint on this. And if the board, I could maybe quickly summarize these,
That
Madam
would be
Chair?
great.
And if it would be the desire of the board, this can be posted on the town website if you would so desire. Because I think it is, and actually, I want to acknowledge the assistance of Peter McConerty primarily, but also Ray Jack and Jim McLaughlin with the Public Works Department, you know, that really had a hands-on role in overseeing all of these projects, some of which predate my arrival as town manager. So I'll just jump in here, and this is generally in chronological order, so that's the process I'm following. The initial one was starting back in 2010. Public Works designed and installed safety fences, stop control signals, signage, and improved bike path terminus at County Road in North Falmouth. That's an area we've talked about multiple times, and actually it came up in our discussion with MassDOT of that critical intersection at 28A and 151 that is, in our opinion, really unlike any others that we have been given examples of. But that's an estimated cost of $45,000. Continuing, ongoing since 2014, Public Works has been overseeing 2 years of CPC funding to construct 26 bike paths with 80-plus bike racks at various town locations. And of course, that was hand in glove with the Bikeways Committee in doing great work and applying for that CPC funding in the amount of $50,000, and that is still underway. In fact, we had some pads poured over the last 2 weeks in various locations downtown at the Heights Ball Field and other locations. So it's really a great expansion. Also, ongoing since the inception, Public Works signage, painting, and striping maintenance of the bikeway in amounts in excess of $1,000 a year, and that notwithstanding the creativity of private artists on our roadways, which we have, of course, asked to have ended. Also ongoing, the public installation of Share the Road or Road Sharo signage throughout town on Davisville, Old Barnstable, Acapesket, and other roads at the rate of $1,800 a year. Some folks may overlook, and I welcome the reminder, providing this reminder that in 2014 to 15, what we called at that time the major east-west bikeway connector, this to downtown and points east along Catherine Lee Bates Road, it involved complex negotiations. I know I was involved in those, as was Peter McConerty and others, for design and construction oversight in collaboration with the Steamship Authority and their expansion of their parking lot here downtown, which involved the elimination of a significant amount of the greenway adjacent to the bike path. And so as part of this negotiation, over $100,000 was invested by Steamship in this east-west connector to downtown that connects with Catherine Lee Bates Road and provides a safe crossing there, which has become much more heavily used over the years. And again, that was only back in 2014 and 15.
One thing about that, I went for a bike ride with Scott Lindell, and there is a crossing from the Steamship Authority to the other side of the road, but there is no crosswalk across Catherine Lee Bates so that you can actually get to the correct side of the road to bike.
Correct.
And is that a crosswalk that, that's on town property, not state? Is that a crosswalk that we could consider having installed there?
I will be happy to explore that with Public Works.
It would connect two sidewalks.
Correct, yeah. And part of the challenge has been we've got that separation on Catherine Lee Bates and traffic going in two directions. But I will be happy to pursue that with Peter and see what we need to do. I recall we had a significant debate about where to take that crosswalk across Route 28, whether we take it to a little bit further south and therefore line up with the eastern direction you wanted to take, or tie in with that sidewalk which is existing on the north side of Catherine Lee Bates. And it was a compromise, but it was a significant design challenge at the time. So happy to explore that suggestion about a crosswalk there on the east side of 28 at Catherine Lee Bates.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Also, there were Sharos installed as part of that on Catherine Lee Bates Road and Shore Street, again, 2014 and 15. There was a redesign and rebuild of Fay Road east and west bridges along the bikeway. Many of you have seen those, and in fact, one of the selectmen, prior to being the selectman, Doug Brown, as I recall, thank you, Doug, had a significant hand with his construction company in securing the bid to reconstruct those two bikeway bridges, which are very attractively designed for anybody that may not have seen them yet. That was at the cost of $45,000. In 2015, we've had an extraordinary number of compliments about the attractiveness of the design and the functionality of it, and it really set a very high standard for us, so we're happy to do that. 2015, with manpower ongoing, there was a budget earmark and a dedicated seasonal public works staff and equipment for the bikeway and maintenance of Goodwill Park. That was a specific set aside in the budget, the board may remember, from 2015. Continuing on page 2, in 2015 as well, there was a completion of the Transportation Master Plan by Public Works incorporating a multimodal design. That was a $110,000 initiative. In 2016, design and oversight of the rapid flashing beacon installation and adjustments for sight distance at Locust Street, and that is the bikeway crossing, for $20,000. And just as a reminder, because I had overlooked it recently, and I was reminded, it's been very challenging to secure the proper approvals to result in these flashing signals. And one of the things that I was reminded of is what facilitated securing that crossing at that location is that's where the rail line used to cross. So we're merely adding a crosswalk where, as we all know and I recall now, there of course was an active rail line crossing Locust Street at that point, and that is something that we were able to build on in securing that flashing PED signal, which continues to be more heavily used as the days go on, and I'm thankful to see more and more people pressing the button to actuate it, as opposed to merely going across and taking their chances, because there is no guaranteed stop there.
Should bring
It's
back
encouraged.
the arm that comes down.
Yeah, the arm from the rail line, Doug, that might get it done. Good point. Okay, in 2017, $135,000 was invested to install 200 feet of revetment along Trunk River to protect the bikeway. We'll recall that was a damaged portion of the bikeway that had to be repaired.
And sewer line.
And the sewer line, underline it as well, had to be protected. In 2017, $50,000 was set aside for pursuing the maintenance repairs to a segment of the bikeway specially funded by town meeting. That is a project that is being reviewed as we speak, working with Public Works and the Bikeways Committee. In 2017, we were under contract for $110,000 with the consultant Stantec for the design of the bikeway pavement replacement and the minor expansion in the area from Woods Hole to the Steamship Authority lot. We are seeking state funding. That is the project that many years ago we were successful in working with then State Senator Terry Murray in having about $890,000 placed on the environmental bond bill. And that's some money we're now trying to capture because we have done, we've really completed our responsibilities to secure that money. So we are looking forward to that improvement. 2017 to 18, we are under contract with the consultant for transportation planning and design. The board is familiar with this. On Main Street, Davis Straits, and T-Ticket Highway. That includes bike-friendly components, as you know, and it's a project that we are very excited about. It also includes, as the board will recall, a proposed roundabout in the area of Friendlies, which we think is going to significantly enhance public safety there and accessibility and really friendliness to all vehicles, including bicycles. There's ongoing work in the area of Worcester Court that will provide sharrows from Lake Lehman to Grand Avenue. That's 2017, a little typo there, 2018 project, $2,000 a year. And that is a summary of spending in the recent years, which I think surprises most folks to look at it as far as the ongoing commitment.
Just
that
in
really
2017, my rough math is you're up to like close to 700 or so, and then.
Correct.
So that's pretty good investment
big
for
number.
a well-deserved amenity that the town provides, and it brings our businesses, sort of more business.
Thanks to the Bikeways Committee for pushing us to do all this, too.
Absolutely.
Right.
And working with us and making recommendations. Very strong
And
committee.
it goes back over many years. It's been a great partnership, and we look forward to that continuing, working with good people for a good result.
This would be great to be posted on the website, if you can.
Be happy to do so, Madam
Thank you.
Chair. Continuing on a few other items, I had attached a brief summary as well on wind turbine and solar array update. Particularly in the area of solar array, just to confirm that I had requested of EDIC that they please proceed with the additional 2 megawatt of solar, which has already been reduced to an agreement in writing with the town. You recall there's 4 megawatts there. They're is a significant administrative process to go through. We're working with Citizens Energy in the state, securing an additional 2 megawatts, but did provide notice and the request that it move forward as per the agreement, and we will look forward to that potentially coming, and there'll be more to be discussed on that going forward. Obviously, that would potentially involve some additional revenue return to the town, as we have now with the current 4 megawatts. So we'll be happy to work with EDIC in that expansion.
And if I might add, I really want to compliment the EDIC to have done all the legwork to make this option still available, and for their, kind of vigilance in really waiting for the town to work through the town's part so that this can potentially move forward. So the further inquiries will be made, hopefully towards a second phase of the project.
Can I ask a quick, Sam, you had your hand up, go ahead first.
Right. No, this is quick. Just to clarify that these are the maximum power outputs. These solar panels don't produce this steadily. This is, and especially in the winter months when the daylight hours are pretty short, there's great reduction in the capacity. This is the maximum these things can produce under ideal conditions. And that's, so, just so we understand what we're dealing with here, when we see these numbers, it's like comparing apples to oranges if we're talking about solar arrays compared to wind turbines.
Well, and we will be getting some real-time numbers coming up, because we now have had the solar array that, in phase 1 that is working. Doug?
So I know they did a ton of work, when they put this original package together for the first solar array.
Right.
And I know I spoke to some of the members of the EDIC. They were hoping to get some kind of, I don't know if you call it profit sharing, but some kind of consideration for the administrative work that they had done.
That's part of the agreement for phase 1. So that, and Mr. Suso, you might have the numbers more on hand than I do, but I'm vice chair of the EDIC, and essentially there is a return to the EDIC based upon, it's a certain years and what kind of a return for the investment, so the EDIC can do more economic development projects. Just having finished the train station and now looking at the tech park, kind of infusing some more productivity out of that would be some of the things that the EDIC will do. But I believe that the second agreement may have some of those elements as well.
And that's what my point was getting to. I think that the train station might have really expended a lot of their funds, and I'm hoping we can maybe support them financially in some way that they can replenish a little bit for some of the work that they've done.
The lease agreement we had with them is fairly generous to the EDIC about the lease that we get from Citizens Energy. Almost, I think now it's starting out with more
They
than
get the lion's share of the money for the first 3 years.
and then it's 50-50.
Okay.
I think that.
And it's a little bit flexible to allow the EDIC to show the Board of Selectmen what kind of investment the EDIC makes in the economic development for the town, and what kind of return it gets. Obviously, the train station being, sort of an iconic kind of building in town, that's one great return. So with the further funds that the board reviewed and quantified, there was also a discussion about, kind of see what you do with this amount and come back and report to the board about the productivity. So EDIC is working on that right now. Sam?
You mentioned improving the tech park and the use of it. I'm still concerned about the fact that jobs aren't being produced here, and that was really the mission of the EDIC. Where do you stand in terms of expanding, job opportunities? And is that part of your tech park initiative?
Absolutely. So the tech park, current residents and owners of those businesses are met with regularly by members of the EDIC. In addition, every meeting of the EDIC has a presentation of a local business who has some potential for job investment, and then working with Open Cape, Steve Johnston going forward. So there are a lot of elements. It's a public meeting, and anyone can attend and look at the agenda ahead of time and look at other ways that the EDIC is working to bring jobs and economic development to the town.
But
So
nothing
it's-
specific at this point.
It's just kind of like the economic development that's done in the Southern Cape. It's a lot of maintaining what we have here and just trying to push it and support it. So, I mean, the EDSC is not an employer. It supports employment and, housing for employees and just general economic development for the town.
Well, I mean, I think, I know we're getting sort of off
Yeah,
topic,
but
but I mean,
this
just
is not
simply
on the
to.
agenda.
No, but I mean, we've talked about this before, and hopefully it'll be on the agenda again. Until we really have that open Cape connected, I mean, we're just gonna be stuck in the same pattern in many ways of maintaining rather than growing, because that growth is really dependent on that technology, so, hopefully we can.
And then there's the marketing issue. I mean, are we doing the kind of networking that really invites the kind of companies that we would like to see in that park to come down and invest? Because, we see what a housing problem we have here. We don't have the salaries that allow people to be able to afford to live here. So it seems like we need to be worrying about bringing in businesses that offer the kind of salaries that actually help people afford to live here.
Mr. Suso.
A couple other items, Madam Chair. I was pleased to attend the regular meeting of the Joint Base Cape Cod Military Civilian Advisory Community Council at 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, August 23rd on the base. I am the town's representative to this council, and it's always an insightful and an opportunity to share information regarding the 4 communities surrounding the base as well as the military operations. Also, I was joined by Frank Duffy and Jennifer Petit in a meeting with the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce representatives to explore a potential extension of the Chamber's lease agreement for Lawrence Academy building with the town. Although there remain multiple years on the existing lease, the Chamber is asking that consideration be given for executing an extension. So we'll be talking about more on that in the weeks to come. Interviews are underway for the housing coordinator position. Peter Johnson-Staub, Denise Coleman, and I are working closely in this process. On this past Wednesday, Chief Dunn and I met with a representative of a medical marijuana provider to receive some general information and answer questions regarding the requirements for potentially locating such a facility within the town of Falmouth. The board will recall that we had multiple contacts with one or more providers within the past year, and consideration for any possible action in the medical marijuana area was put on hold pending the completion of the townwide vote this past May on the matter of retail marijuana sales in Falmouth. Now that that is behind us, the medical marijuana will be increasingly discussed. As noted, the board's next regular business meeting is Monday, September 11th. And finally, Town Hall and Town Administrative Offices will be closed on Monday, September 4th for the Labor Day holiday. And that concludes my report.
I move adjournment.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce. The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Holiday Inn Falmouth opened year-round for your business and travel needs. We provide a full restaurant and accommodations for banquets, holiday parties, weddings, corporate events, seminars, and more. Featuring KC Bar and Grill, where guests or Falmouth residents can enjoy our selection of local craft beers, cocktails, and a variety of pub food from our menu. Holiday Inn Falmouth, your home away from home.